It has been beyond interesting seeing Jordan Peterson on his journey with God and professing his faith, from his recent Exodus series where he gets together different scholars to talk about the imagery and the themes communicated in the book of Exodus, to him being very open about the ways that he's encountered and experienced with God. But the question that many people have asked, and I think continues to ask, is, Jordan, you sound Christian in a lot of ways, but you also sound like you don't take the essentials of the faith as always essential and literal, specifically the issue of the resurrection of Jesus. That is one of the essentials of the faith. In 1 Corinthians 15, we see Paul saying that if the resurrection of Jesus never happened, that Christians are to be the most pitied, that it wasn't just a metaphysical thing, that it was a literal thing. And so I found this clip of Jordan Peterson at a Christian university talking about the resurrection of Jesus. And I wanted to share it with you guys. There's some interesting things here. So let's lock in and let's see how this goes.
1 year ago, last Easter, somebody sent me a posting from one of your postings, and it included an article that I wrote, a really brief one on the resurrection. And you made a comment there. You said, not the article, but the topic. You said, this may be the most important topic I've ever considered.
Well, so for starters, we know that he's reading articles from the leading scholars on this, and he's telling you that this is something that he's considered. So that's a W so far.
Had you been thinking about that for a long time, or, this Easter question, the center of Christianity?
The sticking point, I would say, with the atheist community and the Christian community, let's say, I don't really think is the existence of God. That's a sticking point, and it's not trivial. But I think the true sticking point is the idea of the bodily resurrection of Christ, right? And that's a very...
It's interesting because atheists would say that there is no God, but Jordan Peterson is saying, no, it's actually not that. Atheists are more offended by the cross and specifically the resurrection that there came after.
Very rough sticking point, because it's key to Christianity, and it flies in the face of the standard materialist objective view of the world.
That's a great breakdown. There are people who are quote-unquote scientists that will refuse to acknowledge that the resurrection is even a possibility just because the resurrection doesn't fit within the materialist paradigm. The whole point of the resurrection is that it is a miracle.
And so it's something that I wrestle with continually. And I think that's okay. I mean, one of the things I learned, I love this, I did a series of biblical lectures in 2017, and one of the things I learned, and I should have known this before, but I didn't, was that the word Israel, the name Israel, means he who wrestles with God. And so that the chosen people, the people of Israel...
Because Israel wrestled with God. You guys remember that story?
...are people who wrestle with God. And I do think that that is the sign of a life that's being lived properly, because if God is the source of meaning, let's say, among other things, the source of significance, the source of purpose, and the place where answers might conceivably emerge. It is a wrestling, if you're honest, because no one knows enough to be certain of anything in some sense. And what you do as you pursue the adventure of your life, if you do pursue it, is to wrestle.
So Jordan Peterson says you can't be certain, and that he's having a wrestle with specifically the resurrection. That's the context of the question. What I find fascinating about this is, if you listen to apologists talk about this, we talk about this in this sense. We are confident that the New Testament testifies of the account of Jesus' ministry, death, and resurrection. We're confident in that, and therefore we place our confidence in the resurrection event happening and our trust in that. The certainty, for me, comes in hindsight. I'm confident that Jesus is who he says he is because I believe the New Testament is reliable because it's one of the most well-maintained books from antiquity. And therefore, I'm confident, so I place my trust in the words of Jesus, and I place my faith in the words of Jesus, and I live my life by the words of Jesus. And then I see the miraculous hand of God over my life, and then in hindsight is where I develop the certainty. I wonder if there would be more people coming to faith if they didn't feel like certainty was the equivalent to faith, because they're not one and the same. Certainty and faith are not one and the same. I am certain that this Apple keyboard is white, right? And I'm confident. But I'm not certain that my wife is in the house making dinner or if she ran to the grocery store. I don't know. I could take a guess, right? I have a confidence spectrum, right? And the likelihood that she's making dinner right now, why? Because she makes dinner at this time every single day. Why? Because she's consistently shown a pattern, gives me a certain degree of certainty, right? You guys see what I'm saying? And so I think this idea of certainty from the historical evidence can be a stumbling block, and perhaps we're asking the wrong questions and not approaching it from is there enough here beyond a reasonable doubt to have confidence? And then in hindsight, as we place our faith in Jesus and we see the hand of God over our lives, then we develop the certainty because we've walked through the process.
With those questions of ultimate meaning and the positive element of the idea that it's those who wrestle that are already the chosen people, it's such a lovely idea, because it means that despite our doubt, which is inevitable, I believe, the fact that we're willing to contend with that doubt and to move forward in our lives already puts us on the right track. And so that's a lovely thing. Well, with the resurrection, it's an issue that I wrestle with continually, because there's so much in the New Testament that is profound beyond comprehension. I mean, you see this in the biblical writings in general, like the story of Cain and Abel, for example, is 10 sentences. It's some fragment of a story. It's not even a full paragraph. And it's infinitely deep. You could study that story and analyze it for your entire life and never get to the bottom of it. It's a real miracle that a story like that can exist. And there are statements in the New Testament that are like that. They're so surprising. You see that in the Sermon on the Mount in particular, but not only there, that are so surprising that it's almost impossible to understand how they could have come about from the standard scientific materialist perspective, say. But the claim is so overwhelming and also so mysterious that I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of the idea of the physical resurrection. It's complicated conceptually right within the confines of the Gospels themselves. I don't know what it means metaphysically. I understand what it means symbolically, and that's usually the approach I take, given that I'm a psychologist. I mean, I do believe that the part of the human being that leads us to redemption is the part of us that dies when it's in error and is reborn as something better and new. And I think that's true practically and scientifically and metaphysically. It's true at every level of existence. But I also don't know what it would mean to live that way fully. You know, if you were fully awake to your errors and fully taking advantage of every opportunity that was put before you, and fully devoted to the good, to the highest good that you could conceptualize. I have no idea what the limit of transformation might be for a human being, because we're very mysterious creatures in a very mysterious world.
Lunch, he'll get you clear on the resurrection.
He said at lunch you get you clear. Yeah. So I like the way he's processing that. It sounds like he has a comfort in it being symbolic, and it makes sense symbolically. But there's almost this like fear of what if it is physical and literal, and what would it mean to live in the power of Jesus giving us new hearts and giving us new desires, and not striving for virtue out of our own willpower, but actually having the will of God transform us from the inside out. I think that's the beautiful part about salvation. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about that.
Hey, this is a segment from our daily after party stream. Consider partnering with us online for as little as $5 a month to get access to these daily after party streams completely unedited. You'll also get access to our podcast as they are streamed live into the community before anyone else gets to see them, get to interact with our guests, get access to our private Discord server, and a discount code for our store for as little as $5 a month. Ultimately, that will help towards helping us continue contextualizing the gospel using media and podcast here on YouTube. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.